Hi, it's Lee from ColouringQueen.net, and today I've got the latest from Colouring Heaven. It's Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal Special. As always, the front and back cover are colourable. There are 40 illustrations in this book, and the illustrations have been drawn by 3 different artists. All of the artwork is printed on white paper. Now, the paper is thin to medium. You will need to put a blotter behind it, especially if you want to use wet mediums. And very nicely, each illustration is also accompanied by which illustrator did the actual work. Now, I'm ashamed to say that I haven't seen The Dark Crystal. The movie came out in about 1982, I believe, and before that Jim Henson was pretty well famous for The Muppets, well, in my world anyway. I mean, who can forget Miss Piggy and whatnot? And when it came out, it was considered to be very dark and very unlike his previous works, which, if you compare Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy to this book, The Dark Crystal, you can see why fans would have perhaps been a bit confused. But the movie that he made afterwards, which was Labyrinth, I have seen, and I'm a big fan of that, so I don't know how I missed The Dark Crystal. So all of these previous images have been illustrated by Dylan Burnett. So even though the movie came out in 1982, in 2019, that wonderful thing called Netflix released the prequel to The Dark Crystal. So everything old is new again. We're even getting a new Golden Girls, can you believe that? And so that's surged a lot of interest, obviously, in the original movie, and also in illustrations like what Colouring Heaven has produced here. So I'm not aware of what the characters' names are, and I really must put this on my list to have a look at this movie, because as I said, I love Labyrinth, so I don't know how I missed this one. And you can see a lot of the illustrations don't actually fill the page. There's white space surrounding them, and it's probably so that the original illustration doesn't distort and scales properly on the page. Lots of nice black thick line art, which is very easy to see, especially if you have a visual impairment. And it's very different from our cutesy little fairies and whatnot, although this one's pretty cute. So it's always good to have a bit of variety. Not everyone likes the sweet little bunny rabbit pictures that I'm very fond of. So they've got some great characters, and this lovely thick black artwork is really easy to see. Now we're changing artists to Jae Yoon Lee, and there's very soft grayscale textured, and look at the expression on the face, it's really wonderful. Getting a lot of detail in these pictures. So you can see the very distinctive artistic change with this grey smudging and shadowing and the dark black. And there's also a different perspective of the way that the illustration is presented. This artist is also tending to use more of the page, and the illustrations are very well centered. I love this thick black. It's beautiful contrast. So Colouring Heaven, you can get it in your local supermarket if you live in the UK. Look at this shadowing, isn't it lovely? Now, if you live in other countries, it's available at various stores, even in places like South Africa, where it's often difficult to get a hold of colouring books. In Australia, we used to get it at Big W, but they have said that they are not going to be stocking it anymore. They're going through a few little financial hurdles, the Big W chain, closing down stores and whatnot. I've got a new artist here. This one's Brandon Dayton, and so he doesn't have the thickness of the first artist or the softness of the second artist, so his artwork is again completely different. And you can see this one doesn't fill the whole page, either, so I guess they don't want to scale it because they'll lose some of the sharpness of the lines. And these are really very well drawn. I would think that they have been digitally enhanced or perhaps created in a digital format in the first place, because the lines are very sharp and clear. And there's no pixelation there. They're beautiful, lovely, lovely line art. Look at these crusty little shells on them, crusty little armour on these little, like crabs or armadillos, I don't know. I must put this movie on my list. Often I find it's just better to subscribe to Colouring Heaven, and then that way they send out the magazine to you for every issue. That doesn't include their Christmas one, which is currently available to purchase, but it includes all their regular issues, and then they automatically just get sent to you. Now in Australia that's really good news, because you get it actually a lot quicker than if you waited for it to be available at your local newsagent or in store. And if you don't want to subscribe to all the issues, there's just, one or two issues that you might like, you can purchase those individually off the website and not have that recurring subscription if that's not something that you fancy, or if you don't want to collect them and there's only some issues that you like. Now some of their issues sell out extremely fast, so if you did want them just as a one-off, you best head over to their website, because they don't seem to ever reprint issues, which is a shame, because I'm still sad face about missing out on Jasmine Beckett-Griffiths and Kanoko Agusa's issues that they were in. But, never mind. And then we're back to the beginning with Brandon Dayton's artwork. Certainly a lot to colour here, with so much detail in some of these drawings. And this is a lot less black and a lot less outlined. So a different style from the same illustrator. And now we've got George Corona, another artist. And again, lots of grey texturing here, lots of little small dashes for texture. So a completely different style again. And it's really great that they've put down the illustrator for each of these pictures, because then if you fancy them, you can go and check them out on their social media and see what else they're doing. Oh, and this is very cute. Look at that giant flower. It's got virtually big Angelina Jolie lips there. Very textured. Lots of depth in that picture. And here we have a beautiful crystal. So lots of nice things to colour and lots of nice different artistic styles. You might not like all of them, but some of them are sure to take your fancy. So at the moment they've got a special on, 3 issues for £5, which that's as cheap as chips. But if you're overseas in these countries, they're different prices. So in Australia, this magazine's about $15 when you buy it locally. So 3 issues for $20 is a huge saving for Aussies. And it's free UK delivery, but I imagine that we pay for it in Australia. Now, I used to really struggle getting this magazine because I wasn't close to any Big W stores and none of my local news agents stocked it. So Colouring Heaven very kindly sent me this issue and the previous issues that I've reviewed, well, most of the previous issues. So that was extremely kind of them and saves me a lot of searching around in the shops. So that's it from me, and that's it from the latest Colouring Heaven magazine by Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal Special. And I have to check it out on Netflix and have a look at that movie. Until next time, happy colouring.